Welcome to episode 204 of the Lone Hockey Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about some standouts in last night's matchup between Edmonton and Seattle. Obviously, you see the guy in the background. And so, with Connor returning last night, I thought it was a really good game for him. He obviously was generating a bit of shots. He was creating a lot of playmaking volume. He actually, 30 seconds into the game, he drew a penalty too. So, literally right from the get-go, he was trying to create something and he was always involved on the ice. Obviously, we know he's an elite offensive player, an elite offensive talent. It's just I was curious to see how he was going to get back into the swing of things in this game. He looked rested, obviously, and I think a rested McDavid's more dangerous than anything else because you get McDavid, who is coming off, say, like a back-to-back or something like that. It's a whole different story where he might be a little bit more run down. But in this situation, he had 3 games off and he had a bunch of rest. So now he's got his legs under him. He was really speedy. He was just active all over the ice, creating a lot of havoc. And this was a really good game for Edmonton. They ended up winning 4-2, and they've just been a wagon throughout the year. They're so fun to watch. I feel like the last stretch of games, especially the last 2, 3 months or so, they've really ramped it up and they've just continued to make progress game in and game out to get better and also be able to have different strategies that they can use to better their team game and their team structure. I felt like that was kind of lacking at the start of the year, and now for where it's at, it's become a lot better, and they've had a lot more progress there. So on Edmonton side, we'll start with some standouts there since they're the home team too. And I thought one of the best players in this game outside of McDavid was Mattias Ekholm, and we could talk about the McDavid Draisaitl tandem for a long time. I thought those two looked dynamite yesterday too, and especially on the power play, and of course a couple times it even shrank when they were together. And I just thought Matthias Ekholm was just activating in the rush. He was activating in the zone offensively. He was activating down the wall. He was coming down the flanks. He was maneuvering well in the O zone. He was just able to create a lot of different space, and he was able to be a threat when it came to managing the puck. I felt like you don't necessarily label Matthias Ekholm as a puck handling threat or an offensive threat, and he's more of a guy that's stable defensively. He's more relied upon for his physicality, but he adds that offensive touch when need be, and he can be a guy that can be very reliable and very steady offensively in different situations. So I thought this is one of the better showings that he had personally, and I was really impressed. There's been a few games throughout the year where he does really stand out, and you just don't see it as often. It's not super consistent, and I feel like with guys like Evan Bouchard there, and I would say Evan Bouchard's the main one. I wouldn't say there's too many outside of him. I would say when it comes to Bouchard, you just notice him every game. I would say when it comes to guys like Ekholm and Nurse and some of the other guys there, it's not as much, and it's way more inconsistent when it comes to those two especially. So. But Ekholm had a really good game. That's not knocking him or anything. He just had a really good game and just was all around very reliable, I felt, and just was very engaged. Matthias Janmark had a really good game too. And honestly, I didn't notice too many Edmonton players outside of their scoring. And what's really intriguing with Edmonton this year is they get more depth from their scores. I feel like when you look inside, even their bottom six or bottom nine, they're getting scoring from there. And sometimes when it comes, I remember in past seasons with Edmonton, like they were just a two-man team up front. And I feel like now with where they're at, they have to be more than just a two-man team. And you have to rely upon more players outside McDavid and Draisaitl to be able to create your offense and create structure there. And when it comes to those two, obviously very dynamic, but like when I think about Edmonton now, there's guys like Victor Arvidsson, Corey Perry can contribute when need be. Vasily Podkolzin has been a pleasant surprise for them. And there's just other players who can really fit and gel throughout their top nine that can be steady and be reliable. And then on Seattle side, Matty Beniers and Vince Dunn are two guys who I noticed game in and game out for this team. Matty Beniers, I don't notice as much offensively. I notice him for more for his positional play, his ability to box out guys, stay above pucks, be engaged in the D zone, be a guy who can support his Ds, and be aware positionally at many different stages of the game. I feel like that's what he's really reliable for. And then Vince Dunn, just a guy who plays very engaged all around, like a guy who's really evolved from a top six style defenseman to a premier top pairing defenseman in the league. One of the league's more underrated defenders. I really enjoy watching him. He's one of my favorite defenders to watch in the league. Very, very underrated as a shot threat too, but he's got even better playmaking skills. I feel like when you look at Dunn's game, his playmaking, his puck movement, his lateral playmaking, And just his side to side passing and short area passing, he's among the best in the league when it comes to defenders nowadays, and especially offensive defensemen. And Dunn's a guy who's just very fun to watch, very exciting to watch. And you notice him in so many different situations, not only in D zone, not only in transition, but in the offensive zone is where he does a lot of magical things. And he can be very exciting to watch in those situations as well.